22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Sirach. My child, conduct your affairs with humility, and you will be loved more than a giver of gifts. Humble yourself the more, the greater you are, and you will find favor with God. What is too sublime for you, seek not. Into things beyond your strength, search not. The mind of a sage appreciates proverbs, and an attentive ear is the joy of the wise. Water quenches the flaming fire, and alms atone for sins. The word of the Lord.
And exult before God. They are glad and rejoice. Sing to God, chant praise to his name, whose name is the Lord. God, in your goodness, you have made home for the Father of orphans and the defender of widows is God in his holy dwelling. God gives a home to the forsaken. He leads forth prisoners to prosperity. God, in your goodness, you have made bountiful rain you showered down, O God, upon your inheritance. You restored the land when it languished. Your flock settled in it. In your goodness, O God, you provided it for the needy. God, in your goodness, you have made a home for the poor.
A reading from the letter to the Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, you've not approached that which could be touched, and a blazing fire in gloomy darkness, and storm in a trumpet blast, and a voice speaking words such that those who heard begged that no message be further addressed to them. No, you have approached Mount Zion, and the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and countless angels in festal gathering, and the assembly of the firstborn enrolled in heaven, and God, the judge of all, and the spirits of the just made perfect, and Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and the sprinkled blood that speaks more eloquently than that of Abel. The word of the Lord.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him, and the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man," and then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place. so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they may invite you back and you have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord.
The 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from Sirach 3:17-18, 20, and 28-29. Remember, Sirach was a book that was written around 200 BC, and the author intended to show that Jewish wisdom is superior to Greek wisdom. In this particular passage, we hear about the need for humility, that one should go around recognizing one's limitations, treating others with humility, and realizing that arrogance and power do not conquer. In fact, it's water that quenches a flaming fire. So if we want to live at peace with others, then the best way to do that is not to impose our opinions on others, but rather to approach them with great humility. We're going to hear that theme again in the Gospel. The second reading is from Hebrews 12:18-19 and 22-24a. In this reading, the author contrasts what happened at Mount Sinai, when there was a blazing fire, a gloomy darkness, a storm, a tempest blast. What he's describing is a theophany, when God appeared to Moses and the people of Israel. The description almost sounds like a volcano exploding, and in fact, some archaeologists have searched for volcanoes on the path that the Israelites took to go into Israel. They have found some volcanoes in Saudi Arabia, but none that really fits the bill. And so what was being described in Exodus was really just the results of a theophany, God appearing to his people. Well, if God manifested himself to his people in the Old Testament, how much more has he manifested himself to his people through the person of Jesus? Now we're not dealing anymore with these supernatural phenomena, but rather with a new covenant. And Jesus' blood speaks more eloquently than that of Abel's. So how much more glorious is what has appeared to us? The Gospel is from Luke 14, verse 1, and verses 7-14. Jesus is eating with the Pharisees, and he first of all recommends to them that they walk around the world with great humility, that same humility we heard about in the first reading, that when you come to a meal, instead of taking the place of honor, take a lower place, and that way you might very well be invited up to the higher place and you'll be honored. But if you take a higher place and somebody more important shows up, you'll be humiliated. You'll have to go to the lower place. And he's not just talking about meals. He's talking about the way we walk around in the world, that we should not think of ourselves as the most important person who exists. In fact, in Philippians, Paul says, treat everybody as if they're more important than you are. And then he says, when you throw a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. When we do charity, it should be to those who can't pay us back. Because if we only do it to be paid back, then is it really charity? We're only promoting our own self-interest. But if we serve those who cannot in any way pay us back, then it shows that we're doing it for the love of God. Think of this also in terms of how we treat others when they hurt us, that we forgive them not because they earned our forgiveness, but rather because they need it. Now, in the world that makes absolutely no sense. We treat others as they treat us. But that's not the gospel call. The gospel call is to go beyond the minimum, to give as much as we possibly can. And may God bless us.